Howdy folks, and welcome to the Hillbilly Kitchen. Today we're going to be making Hamburger Stroganoff. This is a really easy recipe and it's really quick, and it's one of those recipes that'll give you a rich taste without having a rich bank account. So what we're using is, I have about a pound of ground chuck here, and I've chopped up an onion and I've chopped up a bell pepper. If y'all watch my videos, you know I put onion and bell pepper in everything. If you don't have an onion or a bell pepper, you can make this with a little onion powder and you don't have to have the pepper. I've got some sour cream, about 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. I have some bouillon and about 1.5 cups of water. Now, if you have beef stock, you can certainly use beef stock in this. And there's a lot of substitutions and we'll get into those, but I'm just seasoning it with a little salt and pepper besides what I have here. I mean, all this stuff here is going to season this dish, and a little salt and pepper is plenty. But let's get this started. Okay, I'm just going to dump my onions and my peppers and my hamburger all in my pan together. And originally, the dish had chunks of beef, broth, and sour cream in it, and a little flour to thicken it. And you can use flour to thicken this if you want to, but I really like the cornstarch to thicken my beef gravies, like roast and stuff, so that's why I'm using cornstarch. If you wanted to use flour to thicken it, you'd want to do it a little bit different. You would want to add your flour and your meat once it was done cooking, and cook your flour a little bit before you added your liquid. But I'm just gonna add all of my cornstarch and my bouillon into my water and dissolve it. Now, if you're using stock, of course you won't need bouillon, but now bouillon can be your absolute best friend when times are tough. If you've got some chicken and some beef bouillon and a big bag of rice, you can make a whole lot of meals with just a little bit of meat. And this is one of those recipes that you can really stretch when times are tough. You could take this pound of meat and you could use maybe 3 cups or even 4 cups of water, and then you would have to have enough bouillon to turn that into stock and enough cornstarch to thicken it. You want about 2 tablespoons of cornstarch for every cup of liquid that you have. And I've got 1.5 cups, so I have 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. And I'm just going to go ahead and add my cornstarch into my cold water now so I can get this out of the way. And I have about 1.5 teaspoons of bouillon. But like I said, if you got to feed a crowd, you can do 3 or 4 cups. And that will make gravy in this, and then you serve it over rice or pasta. Traditionally it's served over rice or egg noodles, but you could serve it over any kind of pasta. You could even serve it over mashed potatoes if you wanted to, for something different. Just make a big pot of mashed potatoes and then scoop this on the top of it. Okay, I'm just going to give this a stir here so it can kind of start dissolving. And the bouillon will completely dissolve in the cold water. It will also dissolve in hot water, but my cornstarch will not. You want to add the cornstarch to the cold water. And I'm just doing this because I want to have it ready when my meat is done cooking. Now, I'm using sour cream in this, and the sour cream is going to give it a lot of flavor. If you had even some leftover sour cream and onion chip dip, you could use it in this. You can make it without the sour cream. If you had a little just regular cream, you could add some regular cream to it to kind of make it creamy. The sour cream makes it creamy and it adds flavor. But if you don't have it, you know, you can make it without it. You could even add just plain milk to it. If you do that, do half milk and half water, and it'll still be creamy, like with the sour cream, but you won't quite have that flavor. And like I said, the sour cream does add a lot of flavor. I'm using about 1/2 cup in this. We're gonna cook this meat until it is brown and our onions and our peppers are tender. Now, if you're gonna feed a whole bunch of people with this, while you're cooking it, you wanna break it up pretty small. You know, break it up fine, because the finer you break it up, the farther you can stretch it, and it distributes the flavor and the texture evenly in your dish. Like if you wanna feed maybe 8 people with a pound of hamburger, you would want to break it up really fine and use at least 4 cups of the broth and the water or stock, whichever one you have, and either one will work. Like I said, the bouillon can really, really be your best friend when times get hard, because with just a few cents, you can make a serving of food that will fill somebody up. And, you know, when times are hard, the last thing you want to do is have everybody leave the table hungry because they didn't have enough to eat. But if you're not feeding so many people, you don't have to bust up your hamburger quite as small. You can leave a few chunks in it, and it will have more of that taste and texture, kind of like regular beef stroganoff has. If you like mushrooms, you can add mushrooms in this. You can certainly add garlic in it. And sometimes I put a little garlic powder in it. Another thing that it has in it there's a lot of variations that have yellow mustard in it. And yellow mustard has a ton of flavor. And if you don't have the sour cream, I do recommend adding 1 or 2 tablespoons of yellow mustard to it, because it has the vinegar in it, and it will kind of give you that tang and boost the flavor up a little bit like the sour cream will. I don't use the mustard and the sour cream together because I think that makes it too tangy, but if you want it extra tangy, you can put a couple tablespoons of yellow mustard in here. There are also a lot of varieties of this that have tomato in them. So you could put a little tomato paste or tomato sauce in this and make it stretch a little farther. Or maybe when they're in season, just chop up some fresh tomatoes and throw in here with the peppers and the onions, and if you do garlic and mushrooms, just whatever will go in this, really. Our hamburger is almost done, but not quite, and we don't want to add anything else to this until it is completely done, because once we add this and the sour cream, it's going to cook in just a second, so it's not going to have time to finish cooking once you add your broth or your bouillon, whatever you're using, and your sour cream. Make sure it's done before you pour that in there. That cornstarch will thicken as soon as it reaches the boiling point. Now, how much, if any, of the fat that you take out of your meat is entirely up to you. The fat has a lot of calories, and it is very, very filling. So if you're really trying to stretch how many people you can feed with this, you might want to leave it in there if you need the calories. Me, myself, I have put on my extra winter 10 pounds and a little bit more, so I don't need all this fat in here, and I'm going to get most of it out. Fat also has a lot of flavor, so like I said, it's entirely up to you how much of it you leave in there, if you leave any at all or all of it. Okay, now once you have your meat cooked, your peppers, your onions, your mushrooms, if you use mushrooms, cooked until they're tender, or as tender as you want them, then you can go ahead and add the rest of your ingredients. Now, like I said, as soon as this cornstarch reaches the boiling point, it is going to thicken. I want to add a little salt and pepper in here now, and it's just to taste. I'm going to use maybe half a teaspoon of pepper and probably about half a teaspoon of salt in this. Maybe not quite half a teaspoon of pepper. And stir that up a little bit, and you can taste it at this point, and you'll know if you want to add more salt or pepper to it. You can, you're basically only adding the salt and the pepper to the meat and the vegetables. So if it's salty enough, then it's going to be salty enough when it's done. Okay, give your cornstarch a little bit of a stir because it will settle into the bottom of your cup. And then just pour it in there all at once. And go ahead and add your sour cream in there now. And that way it will be hot all at once. If you've got people that really don't like sour cream, you can add it on the table, everybody to their own dish. But I think that it really tastes better if it's added into it when it's cooked. It has a different flavor. And you do want to stir this while that cornstarch heats up so that it doesn't lump up. You can see how that's making a nice creamy sauce, and it's almost thick already. It literally just takes a minute once you add the cornstarch in there. Okay, that looks pretty good. If you stop stirring for just a minute and you watch, you'll see a few little bubbles. That means it has reached a boil, and that's pretty much as thick as it's going to get while you're cooking it if you use the cornstarch. Now, if it's super runny and you have to do something with it, you can either make you a little bit more cornstarch slurry, make it kind of thick and add it in a tiny bit at a time, or you can cook it down. It is going to thicken up as it cools, like all gravies do, because this is basically just gravy made with cornstarch, and it will thicken as it cools. If you wanted a little thinner, you can add a little milk to it, or you could add a little more broth if you were using broth, or just add a little bit of water to it. And that literally is all that there is to it. Like I said, you can serve this, traditionally it's served over like an egg noodle or rice. You can serve it over any kind of pasta, and it's good with steamed vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, that kind of stuff. Or go a little simpler with some peas and some carrots. You could do a small garden salad with it. In the summertime, we eat tomatoes and cucumbers with every meal. We just cut up tomatoes and cucumbers and put a little salt and pepper on them, and that would be a fine meal. You wouldn't need anything else with it at all. And you can have dinner ready in about 20 minutes. The most economical way to serve it is over the rice. So if you're on a tight budget and you've got to feed a bunch of people, put it over the rice. But either way, it's delicious. I like it both ways, and you can do some variations with it, you know, and have a different dinner just by varying how you serve it or what you use on the side. Maybe make a fresh pan of rolls if you really want to make a special dinner with this. So give this recipe a try, make it your own, season it how you want, and even thicken it how you want. Choose some different sides. It's a recipe that, like I said, has a lot of possibilities. It'll feed you when you don't have a lot of money to eat, and it tastes good. In fact, we had this like twice already in the past week, and Brett was in there, "Are you about done so I can have dinner?" I mean, it's that good. You can eat it 3 times in a week. Matthew 19:26, with God, all things are possible. Thank y'all so much for joining us in the Hillbilly Kitchen. If you have not already, please don't forget to click like and subscribe before you leave. And until next time, remember to put God first.